بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار.
Happy Strong Families. Join here with my co-host. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Muntaha Malik, and I am the co-host for today's podcast, Happy Strong Family. Welcome back to our weekly live. We are super excited today to have our guest speaker, Hebaa Rizeq. She is a certified birth and labor doula and a certified childbirth educator. She's the founder of Laina Birth, providing doula services and classes with an Islamic perspective across the GTA. And she's a member of Association of Ontario Doulas, a mother of 3 young kids, and fun fact, she loves Taekwondo, and she's an expert.
No, I was almost an expert.
Almost an expert. You can tell us more about that, inshallah. So I'll hand it over to Sister Hebaa.
Assalamualaikum. So pretty much that was a great introduction. Thank you so much for that. I'm really happy to be here. It's been a long journey to try to contact someone to speak about my services, and especially for the Muslim community. It's just great to finally be here to speak about what I can offer for the Muslim community, inshallah.
Awesome. Now, Sister Hebaa, you and I were discussing off air, and we had a little bit of fun, and you probably caught the tail end of that once we jumped live. It's, again, my own background, Canadian born and raised, but with that kind of Southern Indian flawed accent. So when I say doula, and Sister Muntaha had to correct me and say Mountain Dew. So to say, as you're saying Mountain Dew, say doula. But I always kind of automatically default to the Urdu language, right, which is my second spoken language. But I kind of think, what is it? Groom. Yeah. Right. So I think of like bride and groom. So please, I think for the majority of people, and this is where education always comes in, and this is where we're kind of bridging that gap between the nucleus of a happy, strong Muslim family, to where we kind of take a leap of faith or a jump off point and say, okay, to have that happy, strong family, this is a service, and it's different than a midwife, as we were discussing off air. Yeah. And it is grounded in Islamic principles. So, I'm going to kind of now leave all the humor aside and very seriously, like, what is a doula? Tell us that, give us that education. And then what does it do for the parents, right? Because as much as, we always talk about happy, strong family from all the different angles, today we're going to do a real deep dive on how this Islamic service can benefit parents to be.
Right. So doula, basically, we're there for the mom and the father also. We're there to provide mental, physical, emotional support for the mom when she's in labor, but we also work with the partner. And we make sure that they are included as much as possible to work with the mom and making sure that she's comfortable, she's making whatever decision she feels she's comfortable with. So we provide one-on-one continuous support. So from the moment someone hires me as their doula, I'm continuously working with them. We work together on certain pains that they're feeling, certain emotions that they're feeling, their birth plan, their birth preferences, and if they have any questions about routine blood work or ultrasounds or whatever it may be, we discuss it, the pros, the cons of everything, and I leave it up to her to decide what she feels is best. And I also make sure that the dad is included so that he knows, okay, this is my future child and the wellness of my wife and my future child. So obviously he needs to be included because he's the father. So we just make sure that the mom is feeling empowered with her choices and not feeling like she's forced into making certain decisions because a care provider was telling her to do X, Y, and Z.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And again, just in terms of your own bio and credentials, because I think in terms of something as serious as your partner, your wife giving labor to your, newborn child, you'd want to have someone who's qualified,
Right.
just like as you would expect, the doctor or the surgeon walking into the operating room. Doctors and surgeons and medical practitioners all have what's called a CME, continuing medical educational credit.
Yes.
So they are continually nonstop, month over month, year over year, learning so they can keep their medical license, right?
Right,
Effectively.
yeah.
So you are a certified birth and labor doula and a childbirth educator. So
Yes.
tell the audience a little bit more about that certification process.
So I did it online with Amani Birth. It's a organization based in the US with Sister Aisha Al-Hajar. She is a midwife herself, and she took the perspective of the Bradley method, which is a method on childbirth, on the physiology of pregnancy, labor, birth, and everything. And she kind of gave it the Islamic twist. Okay. She gave it the Islamic twist, and then she started training people to become doulas and childbirth educators. So once COVID hit, she started doing the online platform where you can take the course online, and she teaches you for 5 hours a day. And then after you finish the online sessions, you have prerequisites that you have to complete, which is book reports and the exam that you have to take, you have to pass it, and also supporting one labor and one birth in order for you to become certified. And then to be certified as a childbirth educator, it's the same process, but you have to teach the entire course to one expecting mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a rigorous methodology, if you will.
Yes.
All right. I didn't know that. I'll go by my own experience with my 3 children. We went straight to Markham Stouffville Hospital. So say for a parent in Markham or an expecting parent, wherever they may be, whether here in the GTA or Canada for that matter, or North America, how do they engage with the doula practitioner? What's the process and how far in advance? I don't think one would call up just 48 hours before. Maybe. Right? I don't know. But from what you're saying, both spouses are involved. They want to make these life choices and whatnot.
Right.
So tell us about this process.
So basically, whenever they feel like it's time to hire me as a doula or as a childbirth educator, then they would contact me. And I usually say when you're around 3 months, 4 months pregnant, then that's when you should contact me, just because I'm one person and I get bookings wherever it may be. And if you want to book me for your estimated due date, then it's best to do it as soon as possible.
Got it.
Right. So I typically tell parents, if you want me as your doula, then give me a 4-5 month notice at least. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. For sure. Muntaha, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I'm curious about the Islamic perspective. So what's the difference when you're teaching or even when you're practicing through an Islamic perspective versus mainstream?
So with the childbirth classes, we talk a lot about Maryam alayhi salam and how it's always mentioned in the Quran, how Allah commanded her to shake the date palm tree and eat the dates and the river flowing beneath her. And just as Muslims, to have that perspective of Maryam alayhi salam when she was giving birth, it really relates to us, because when I'm working with a mom and she's in labor, I always remind her that Allah chose you to be in the same position as Maryam alayhi salam. So as Muslims, when we have that perspective, we kind of think, okay, Allah chose me to do this. And Allah chose me to be in the same position as her when she gave birth to the Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Right? So that's one of the major things that we always talk about. And then we talk a lot about having tawakkul. And how Allah gave us our bodies as females so that we can, give birth to children. And when it comes time to that, we have to make informed choices, not just, okay, doctor said I should do this, I should do it. We really have to think about it, because that child in our womb is an amana on us. And whatever we do to ourselves is happening to the child. Some way, somehow, anything that we eat, any medications we take, ultrasounds, blood work, it's all affecting the baby in our womb. So I always try to tell moms to think of it into that perspective. And I also tell the dads, like, this is your child at the end of the day. And whatever the mom feels is best, or if you feel like the mom is doing something harmful that could potentially harm the baby in any way, shape, or form, then you have the right to speak up too.
Okay. So let's see, as a new ally and advocate for the doula, then, how would, in terms of, I'm just thinking in my own mind's eye, do you make home visits? Do you accompany the family to the hospital? Like, how does this all work? It's all well and good to kind of book you 5 months out, but then what, practically speaking, how do you engage with the family as a practitioner?
Right. So once they hire me, we have 2 to 3 meetings in person or online, and we discuss everything. We discuss how the mom's feeling, whatever questions she may have, birth preferences, the dad's birth preferences, even like what he feels is comfortable. And then I discuss ways that I will facilitate to their labor when it comes time to that. So in my contract, it says once you hit 38 weeks, I'm on call for you 24/7.
Okay.
So at any time, any day, like whatever it is, even if it's like day of Eid or something, if you call me and you say you're in labor, I'm there. Okay. So there's continuous phone, text, email support throughout the time you hire me until the day you give birth. And then once you're in labor and I feel like it's time for me to come to you, I will either visit you at your house or we meet at the hospital or the birth center, wherever you're planning on having birth. So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And then I stay, after you have the baby, I stay there for 1 to 2 hours, making sure that if you want to discuss anything, make sure that the mom and dad are doing well. If they have any questions pertaining like technique or, whatever it is that they want to do for the baby, then I'm there to help them. Or if it's like breastfeeding or swaddling, baby wearing, whatever it may be, I'm there for like 1 to 2 hours to make sure everything is answered. There's lots of new parents who don't know how to change a diaper because they've never changed a diaper before.
Yeah.
And the nurses, midwives, OBGYN, they're there for you to have your baby and then they're gone.
Yeah, which is always, I mean, I guess that's maybe one of the reasons of a few outstanding reasons as to why this team from the very start wanted to focus on the nucleus of the happy, strong Muslim family, in that even if you look at, you take a page from the Catholic Playbook, the couples that are about to get married, they will actually visit their church and say, hey, we're about to get married. And they actually go through like an exercise where they're given like a toy baby doll and like, oh, here's your new baby. Now look after the baby. You guys are effectively married. And for the next 2 weeks, do a check-in and go through the exercise, see how you're going to like get along, how you're going to accommodate each other. You'll learn new things about your partner. You have a baby to take care of. Like, this is actually all done.
Wow, that's interesting.
And in the Catholic faith, it's taken very seriously. Like some people go through with it, some people don't, but those that do, I think it's quite the eye opener for them. Now, generally speaking, in Islam or in Muslim culture, if you will, like I'll borrow that term, we don't have such a thing, right? Like there is no thing where it's like, okay, how do I know? I mean, just even discussing the topic of marriage is taboo enough, I think, for many a parent. And then just kind of be like, hey, I found this partner on half my deen or anything like that. That takes it up to a whole new level. So just now even discussing, like, I think even between partners, oh yeah, how are we going to look after the baby? I mean, I think the automatic default is just to go to a hospital, right? So how do you then, like you were saying earlier, empower the couple to make those informed choices?
Right. So I typically say for a girl when she starts menstruating to start learning about the physiology of our female anatomy, right? And to ask questions, not be afraid to ask questions. And if your parents are not comfortable answering the questions, then go to someone who is comfortable. Go to like a Muslim woman or an Islamic figure that you feel comfortable talking to. And typically for the males, is when they get a little bit older and they're thinking about marriage. Typically, I say, like, when you're even, for a male, when you're thinking about getting married, that's when you should start asking questions about pregnancy, labor, birth, postpartum even. Like, postpartum is a big thing for men too.
Definitely.
Like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Men also have a potential of going through postpartum depression and anxiety because he's also there supporting his wife, and he's getting the emotional effects of everything. And people don't think about how he's being affected by it. He's going through postpartum just as well as she is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And again, I think even Imam Nabil here at Masjid Darul-Aman, for one of his Friday khutbahs, he was discussing just, postpartum depression overall as another cultural taboo, how it's not addressed, how it's not recognized even, especially by men. I think, men are a little bit hardwired to be stupid, so they just don't know. But that's not an excuse, right? That's just not an excuse. So I think the more we're self-aware, the more we understand in general, then I think we're all better for it. So, like you say, I think one of the issues of raising children now, raising parents, father of 3, and we've also taken this approach very recently, that everything is out there in the Quran.
Yes.
Like, and it's always repeated, from now, if there are kind of parents watching, children are around, it's up to you whether, like, I can't put any labels on this broadcast if it's, family friendly, parental advisory, anything like that, but it's there in the Quran. And I do this thing where I look directly into the camera, but it's there in the Quran, from the conception of the child to the birth of the child. It's all there, starting with like a seed, a droplet. It's there. I can't make this stuff up because it is there.
Yeah.
Now, whether we as Muslims kind of block and tackle the open discussion of this as a family, it's really up to the parents, right? And just the maturity and comfort that the parents may have with the children. But I think that's just parenting 101, right? Wouldn't you think about?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with like growing up. Like, we were always told to not talk about this. So even like when we get married, we're just kind of shy to discuss it with our partners, and just like, we think that as women, we should know everything already. Like, oh, my parents gave birth, and there's so many women in our family that gave birth. So it's just everything that a woman does, and we should know what to do already. But in reality, now that birth is so medicalized, we don't really know what to do and how to navigate it.
I mean, I'll go even a little bit silly and like tell my personal experience. My dad never gave me the birds and the bees talk. He never did. It was actually my uncle of all people. But I think, again, it's just, can we get you a glass of water? Sorry, this is a live broadcast. Maybe we can figure that out somehow. But again, still, I think culturally speaking, thanks, producer Kashif. So culturally speaking, it's just one of those things not done, right? I think we have, somehow this podcast is turning into a little bit equal parts, like, just the taboos of Muslim culture. And I'll put that in air quotes, because it's not in our deen, right? Our deen is very transparent. It's very transparent.
Of course, And people would ask the Prophet these questions too. So if people weren't shy to ask the Prophet these questions, why should we feel shy asking professionals or people who have knowledge on this topic, right? And there's a reason why it's becoming so out there nowadays, because there is a lot of gaslighting that's happening by care providers. And I say care providers because I'm not going to single out OBGYNs or midwives or anything like that. It's care providers in general. And a lot of them just want to do things in ways that are comfortable for them themselves. They don't really put the mom's feelings into play. They say, okay, whatever you're comfortable with. And then when it comes time for you to give birth, it's all about them and what they want you to do. So that's when it comes time to, okay, well, we discussed X, Y, and Z, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Unless my health is in danger or unless my baby's in danger, then obviously you intervene. And another thing I always tell moms who are in labor is that if it was a dire situation, they would not let you make a choice. Right? They would say, okay, well, we're suggesting whatever it may be. We're suggesting we give you oxytocin. We're suggesting we do a C-section. But if it was an emergency, like a true emergency, they wouldn't give you an option.
Right.
right? So
right.
that's something that a lot of people need to think about. And how you make these choices for yourself and for your baby is by being knowledgeable on the physiology of pregnancy, labor, birth, and the stages of labor, what to expect,
Right.
what you should be doing, and different maneuvers, and the position of the baby, and all this other stuff. And as doulas, we do have the knowledge to assess the position of the baby, where the baby is, and how we can facilitate the mom's movements so that the baby can be born in an optimal position.
Okay.
Right?
What if the baby's breached? I've been through this situation before.
Breech
personally.
babies can be born vaginally also. Like there's
What's a breech baby?
So that's like when the head or the buttocks is first.
Oh,
and
okay.
so optimally you want the baby's head to be down. Right. So breech, and then the only way you can't birth a baby vaginally is if it's transverse. And that's like when
Sideways.
the back is like to the cervix. And it obviously can't come out that way, right? And then like I always explain to moms, if there was a true, like I keep reiterating this, but like if it was a true emergency, you would not have an option. Right. So that's why I don't like saying birth plan. It's a birth preference, because at the end of the day, we plan, but Allah is the best of planners.
For sure.
Right. So that's what I always try to explain.
Great. I mean, that's just to kind of bring it all back into perspective of how Allah is truly the best of all planners.
Yeah.
So then in terms of the preference, I guess it all comes back fully to education, right? It comes back full circle again and again and again to that education and how you can kind of educate both parents to kind of be understanding of the situation, to be as prepared as one can be.
Right.
But I think, at least in my own kind of thinking, kind of a hardwired circuitry of the brain, is there like a college of, there's a college of physicians, right? There's a college of, I think, naturopaths and homeopaths. Is there a college of doulas?
There's a college of midwives.
Midwives.
Yes.
So within that, are the doulas part of that, or is there some kind of advocacy or lobby group being formed? Are there other doulas such as yourselves out there? Yeah,
for sure. There's a few Muslim doulas that I'm in connection with. There's some in London, some in Brampton. The one in Brampton is actually becoming a midwife herself, mashallah.
Okay, mashallah.
But she did the same organization as I did. And then there's a few, like I think in Hamilton.
Okay.
So we're all spread out.
Yeah.
And we kind of like all have our own regions of the GTA.
Yeah.
And there's also one in Cornwall, mashallah. But then again, like we're connected on WhatsApp, but we're not connected like in person or anything, right? So there is the Association of Ontario Doulas, and it's basically insurance for us. And they like put our profiles on their website. So if people are looking for a doula, they can go there.
Okay.
And they can, filter out for like whatever preferences they have for a doula. And then they can contact the person that way.
So Sister Hebaa, what would be the website for that, please?
It would be the Association of Ontario Doulas.com.
Like is that the URL?
Yeah.
Or just Google it, because that's a very long URL.
I think that's the URL, but I'll have to double check. But
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it is. Or you can just Google it.
Just Google it.
Association of Ontario Doulas.
Okay.
Or you can even like Google search doulas near me, and then that website will pop up, and then it'll help you find someone.
And what would be the exact spelling of doula?
Doula.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sister Muntaha, please, like over to
Yeah.
you. I mean, this is equal parts the Sister Muntaha show for the Mushtaq show, but let's.
Yeah, I was just something I was thinking about was I actually saw the post yesterday. I was telling you that even like fathers go through postpartum depression, anxiety. That was very shocking for me, because I usually think, even like as a psychology student, I'm thinking, okay, the mother went through it physically, she's experiencing the psychological trauma, that's it. And you never think about the father. So I guess like what would your almost like advice be for partners who are going through this like postpartum depression together in a way, because I'd never thought about it being together. And secondly, what would your advice be for people who are supporting them? For me, I have a lot of couples around me who are pregnant right now, mashallah, my own sister right now.
Mashallah.
So I was like, I'm like, wait, I have to support two people now? Like, that's really interesting. So yeah, what's your take on that?
So it's basically just to understand the telltale signs of postpartum anxiety or depression. And anxiety can show up in a lot of different ways, as you know, and it can be like constant Google searches or constantly checking up on the baby, or just making sure that the baby's breathing. And sometimes the dad does the same thing, right? Because it's his child at the end of the day. And before like that all happens, I try to make sure that the mom and the dad are going through the labor and birth process in a way where they are not traumatized,
Okay.
right? Because it all starts from there. How you are going through your labor and birth will affect how you go through postpartum, right? So if you are, going through a traumatic experience in your labor and birth, and then the dad is also seeing it that way too, like his wife is in pain, the doctors are rushing in and doing things, and bringing out scissors and forceps and all these different things, and
Mhm.
the wife is screaming in pain, and the dad feels helpless.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, this is my wife and my child, and what can I do to help, right? And sometimes like we kind of think of men as like they don't really care, they have like laid back attitudes, but when you truly see someone that you love as a man, and they're going through something like that, you're going to feel some type of way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my job as a doula is like when I do see the dad getting flustered, or he's panicking, like, why is this happening, what's going on,
Mhm.
as the Islamic perspective, I tell him, you need to take a break, go pray your salah, make constant dua for your wife and your child, and when you feel comfortable enough to come back, then come back into the space.
Great perspective.
Wow.
100% great perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever he was in stress,
Mhm.
de-stressed, in some kind of anguish, or
Mhm.
worried, or in some kind of trouble, the first automatic default, and we can all take a lesson from his playbook, is he'd go into salah,
Mhm.
go into sujood, start
Yeah.
praying,
Mhm.
praying nonstop. And this is something I think we can all learn from.
Yeah.
So, Sister Hebaa, let me just ask you, and I think this is maybe Producer Kashif, this might be a good segue to read some of the comments. I mean, they're really, I think they're great comments, because it gives this type of broadcast validation more than anything, because at the end of the day, we want to have these difficult discussions, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Around Muslim identity,
Mhm.
around quote unquote Islamic culture, around quote unquote how families can be, a better Muslim family, wherever
Right.
you may be.
Mhm.
So, Producer Kashif, go ahead, and then I'll continue from there.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the comments we had come in was, I would love to have a doula, inshallah. So maybe at the end we'll put up some contact information and
100%, yeah, for sure.
how we can contact Sister Hebaa.
For sure.
And then there was another one that came in that is saying, MashaAllah, thank you for allowing these stigmatized conversations on your platform. So, MashaAllah. Maybe I'll add to the conversation also and throw in a question, as
For
I
sure.
often do. So, Alhamdulillah, I'm familiar with doulas. I have one in my family. I know a lot of people that have had doula services, and they say it was like completely game changing. Like my friends and stuff, like males that I'm talking to, the fathers, they're like, it was the best decision they made, having someone there to support them through the process, support them afterwards, being there, because like we just don't know. If Brother Mushtaq said, guys are stupid. Like we've never been through that. We've never been taught that by our parents. Like it's the first time we're in that situation. So
That'll be the separate episode unto itself. Don't worry.
Exactly. So a lot of times with good intentions, we're doing things to help that are actually working in the opposite direction. So alhamdulillah, like I can say that I've had a lot of feedback. Now, so that's sort of afterwards. Now, even me and my wife, like although we have 2 kids now, when we were sort of discussing this, having a doula, there's sort of a cultural stigma where, I'll use the word, like obviously with a doula, you get sort of intimate. They're there the whole time. They're there before, after, during. So I was just saying to my wife, it's going to be so awkward, like having someone in the room there during that time. Like obviously doctor, nurses are sort of in and out, but someone that's that close, involved throughout the whole process, like I'm not comfortable. And looking back, it was so selfish of me to think of myself in that moment, right? But I'm sure that's a common thing that guys feel, like it's going to be awkward having someone in the room. So what's sort of the response to that? And anyone that's been through it though, like loves it after the fact and it was the best decision. But how do we sort of get over that barrier?
Yeah. So basically, I make sure, like I said, when we have the consultations and the meetings, the dad is there. He's present, and he gets to know me as well. just so I'm not like some random woman that comes like, oh, I'm going to be there the whole time. Like, you have to get used to me no matter what. I make sure that he's comfortable. He asks me questions, and I do give the parents a break. I do give them like time to themselves, just because again, like it's a very intimate process. But I get the dad involved. I get him involved with back massages, giving the mom like food, water. Just I show him how to do our favorite technique as doulas is called the hip squeeze. So I show him how to do it, and like if she's feeling a certain like pain in her back, like how to press down on it, like certain acupressure, acupressure, and sometimes there's hydrotherapy, aromatherapy, and like all these different things where I can show him how to do things and get him involved, because he obviously knows his wife better than I do. So he knows, okay, if she's in discomfort, I know she likes to have her head rubbed, or she likes this certain ayah in the Quran that I like to recite for her, or a certain dua that I keep reciting for her. So you just think of me as kind of like an add-on, right? I'm there to make sure that everything is well-rounded, and the dad is feeling involved in helping his wife.
That's really cool.
Sister Muta, any questions?
No, I think that's helpful. I feel like when it comes to just supporting, I think this is the first time that I'm seeing it as like the father supporting, because a lot of times in our community, in the Desi community, I see like maybe the mother of the person who's going through it coming into support. So I've never actually thought that fathers support the actual process of labor. So it's really cool. I feel like this is situating a different idea of birthing in my head now. Alhamdulillah. Because the questions I was asking too are very like, oh, how does the community support though? How am I going to support my siblings? But it's like, wait, the father can actually do something too. Mashallah.
But there are some times where the mom is by herself.
Right.
It could be like various situations where she fled an abusive husband, or her husband passed away, or whatever it is, and I kind of sort of have to replace that. So again, like it depends on the dynamic, and it's not just the Desi community. It's majority of the Muslim community.
Yes, most definitely.
Right. Because if you look at non-Muslims, they know about doulas, they know about postpartum support, they know about labor and birth support, they know about the physiology of childbirth, they know about it, but I guess as Muslims we kind of feel shy to talk about it, like how we were discussing. And I'm really trying so hard to break that cultural stigma.
That's it, 100%.
Because it's not Islam that's not telling us to talk about it, it's our culture.
Exactly.
Right.
It comes back full circle to that as part of our conversation. We've touched upon it, right? That Muslim identity, that Islamic culture. And I think maybe it's just kind of framed as just being the children of first generation, immigrants, right? That immigrant experience that we as now first generation Canadians of the Muslim faith are now kind of understanding that, this is what Canadian life, affords us.
Right.
We do have that agency, we do have that power to kind of understand and take control of our situations. Right. So this has been a great, I think, a really educational session. So Sister Hebaa, thank you so very much. We do have one question from the audience. Okay, producer Kashif just highlighted that.
So alhamdulillah, it has been very educational. So in discussing this podcast with some family members and stuff beforehand, like I always try to solicit some questions, some concerns, get the get a sense of what's going on in the street, what people are thinking. So, obviously there's a lot of work to be done here about that stigma, and culturally, like a lot of things we have to get over in our head. So one of the questions that sort of came up is like in order for people to get aware of this information, what is in an ideal world, how can the community, specifically masjids, sort of support this, right? So it's not a stigma, it's not taboo to talk about, but these conversations are happening and inshallah helping and benefiting the community as a large.
Right. So I really feel like the leaders of the masajid need to be more open and accepting like workshops per se. Like I said, for non-Muslims, they have workshops where women can gather, talk about their postpartum issues, their birth stories, whatever it may be. But when you look within the Muslim community, you don't find it. You don't find it. And
Mm.
as Muslim women, we feel we have that safe space in the masjid.
Yeah.
Right? We have that. And I feel like a lot of the masajid are not open to having workshops. And because of that, there is a huge downfall in postpartum support. Because a lot of women who do go through postpartum depression, or the fathers even, they don't know who to turn to.
Right.
You know, they complain to their mothers or their mother-in-laws, like, I'm feeling this type of, like, oh, it's okay. Like, I felt the same way. You're fine.
Mhm.
You know, they're going to people who don't have the knowledge to facilitate how they're feeling, why they're feeling, and to speak up about their experiences and
Right.
be heard
Right.
and feel safe.
No, that's a
Yeah.
powerful, and poignant comment, Sister Hebaa. I think in terms of facilitating that response, I've mentioned it before, and for anybody who knows me, I sit in the houses of two dragons. I use that just some humor, but I am on the board of Masjid Darul Iman here in
Mhm.
Markham. I'm also in the Shura, so definitely I'll be bringing that up
Yeah.
to our board. And another comment from the audience. So let me just finish that train of thought. But definitely, if we could facilitate a workshop through Masjid Darul Iman in Markham, I think it's a great start, at least for the
Inshallah.
York
Yeah,
region,
inshallah.
for Greater Toronto area,
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. But we're at that kind of critical time now where there's just more openness to discuss and these stigmas, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's mental health,
Mhm.
mental well-being.
Right.
I mean, Sister Muntaha comes from a background in psychology, and it's just, no one should suffer in silence, and no one should be alone in silence, right?
Yeah.
That's the very meaning definition of community. So let's now get to that question, please, Producer Kashif.
So it's actually, wait, sorry, was this the one? No, here we go. So there's a comment. It's actually Brother Imad, who's behind the scenes. He's one of our volunteers with the podcast. MashaAllah, does amazing work behind the scenes. So he's saying, Jazakallah khair for being on the show, Sister Hebaa. My wife and I are family planning, and this information is extremely helpful, MashaAllah. Expect a call from us in the future, inshallah.
All right, there you go.
So may Allah grant you, inshallah, righteous children. And
Ameen.
And while we're on the topic of Imad, let me just, him and his wife will actually be taking over the show next week. So they'll be on. So just want to set a plug for that. October 9th, 11 a.m. Sarah and Imad, they'll be talking about, some of the challenges and in searching for a spouse, and some of the etiquettes of that. So inshallah, next week we're looking forward to having
back by
Sarah and Imad
popular
back.
demand. Yeah,
MashaAllah.
Sarah and Imad. So it's going to be a couple show. This is fantastic. All right.
And then there was a question, I believe, here. I haven't read this one yet, but my wife is wondering, what are some tips for preparation before pregnancy, health, vitamins, foods? Do you provide service for pre-pregnancy?
Oh, great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question, mashallah. So even like for pre-pregnancy, if you want to take childbirth classes, working on your health is major, because if you're growing a child, you need to be in the best health, right? There are certain foods, like I would try to stay away from like processed foods and inflammatory oils, like I guess like in the Desi community, there's like a lot of fried foods. So try to stay away from that. Make sure you're on top of eating like foods that are high in vitamins and that are very nutritious, so you don't have to take supplements. But if you do, try to look for like whole food supplements. So that way you're getting like the actual, not the chemical version of it, but like the whole food version of those supplements, inshallah. But yeah, just, prepare mentally, physically, emotionally. Like it's a huge process to grow a child and to birth a child and then to raise a child.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, Sister Hebaa, I guess last question, is this an actual service you provide, whether in terms of like consulting or a workshop, or you can meet one-on-one with the couple or the parents to be or the mom to be?
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to come into the masajid and tell them like I need these workshops done, and to like kind of accept my role as a doula and like talk about it, because like I said, for women to prepare for pregnancy or to understand pregnancy, it starts at menstruation. It starts there. And like for males, it starts when you're looking to get married, because again, it's an amana on us, right? So
100%,
we have to understand it.
Okay. I think Producer Kashif has put on the screen your website, or the website of the Ontario Association.
My Instagram page.
Oh, your Instagram. Okay, clearly I need to wear glasses.
Yeah, so in case anyone wanted to contact maybe if you just want to provide your email address also.
Yeah, sure. So it's Layana, my business name, at amanibirth.com.
And it's in my notes here. And Layina is LAYINNAH.
Yes.
I'll put it on
All
there.
right.
LAY.
I
INNAH.
Amani, AMANI, birth.com.
There you go. The power of a real-time broadcast. So we'll wrap it up here, unless Producer Kasha, we have any more questions from the audience.
Yeah, we had one more come in.
Sure.
So I guess it's just more around just understanding more about the doula. It says, Assalamu alaikum, mashallah. Is this an improvised version of mum or auntie, which in the old world would have been supportive? I did not quite understand if there is a professional licensing body.
Yeah, so we do go through the whole certification process, and we have to take exams and everything like that. And then there's continuing educations, like how you were explaining, like physicians take and everything. And then we are insured under the Association of Ontario Doulas. So that way we're not just like some random auntie or something just coming in to support your birth. Like, we do have the knowledge of the physiology of pregnancy, labor, and birth, the natural aspect of everything, but it's up to the doula. Like, this is why you interview a doula before you hire her. We go, like, you can ask them, like, what are your specialties? What are you continuing your education with? Like, what are the things you do besides going through pregnancy, labor, and birth? Like, are you certified in anything else? Are you continuing your education with anything else? So those are all questions that you should ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sister Muntaha, please. Last comments.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually telling Sister Hebaa before as well that I was babysitting one of my friend's baby this week who's only 4 months old. And actually, like, right before I did that, I was so confident. I was like, I'm so ready to do this. And everyone I spoke to was like, you're babysitting a 4-year-old? Are you crazy? A 4-month-old? Are you crazy? Like, you've never even held a baby before. Like, how are you going to do this? And it was actually very tough. And I actually realized this week, like, when I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, I want to be like more prepared. So I feel like, subhanAllah, it's like so interesting how we're having the podcast in the same time, because I think this is like important conversations to have from now. And I don't think a lot of us think of that. I know, like, as someone who's younger, I'm not married. It's like, it doesn't feel like it's something to even think about yet. But for sure, there's like I think preparation process. So
this is where I think this is a natural segue.
Yeah.
I'll park this idea here, and I've mentioned it to you before, Sister Muntaha, a few times, that I will step away from this roundtable stage, and you will be the sole dedicated host of a Muslima-oriented session, because it's awkward to have like actual more intimate Muslima-related discussions with me here at the table. I mean, Producer Kashif is here. We welcome a female producer just to kind of have an all-female crew. I'll put it out there also. And then we'll just very kind of quietly step away to have an all-female cast and crew. I think that's all the more important.
That would be really cool, yeah.
Well, there you go. I've done my part in planting the seed, and then I'm handing the baton over to you. So I think this is where I could, naturally potentially wrap it up. And I mean this in a very serious manner, that it's all about equal parts education, making informed decisions so that you can be better prepared for the birth of your child. I think as parents or parents to be, a child that you bring into this world is probably the most important, if not, the most important decision of your life as a parent or as a parent to be, whether you're a single parent or, a parent of two, parents of two, a couple, whatever the case is. This is an important discussion, and inshallah, we'll somehow here at Masjid Darul Iman, at least in Markham, we'll start those workshops to kind of bring that informed decision-making ability and capability to more Muslim families and couples and Muslim parents or single parents into the mix. This is Brother Mushtaq, Sister Muntaha, and Sister Hebaa. Thank you. This has been a wonderful session. Producer Kashif, as always, thank you. And next up will be Sarah and Imad. for the next show. So signing off for now, but do tune in and tune in often. The whole purpose as to why we are doing this show is to have those difficult discussions you may not be able to have around your family table, or around, within your friend circle, or even within the mosque or the masjid, or even at home. So those difficult discussions, at least you can kind of hear some of it, deconstruct it, think about it, reflect upon it, and take it for what you will. Hopefully, inshallah, there'll be some benefit out of it. All right. Jazakallah.